Actually, I'm sharing the register link so people can join with their own separate URL.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So shall we start?
Yeah, yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. Um,
Are you able to share?
yes.
Okay. We see a CTA registration page.
So can you see the presentation now?
I can see there. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So hello, everyone. Good evening. And somewhere this is good afternoon. It's over here. This is good evening. So basically, I'm going to share a new framework. This is not new at all. Actually, it's been around almost 2 decades, going to be 2 decades. It's around, maybe anyone heard about that Scrum framework. So we will be talking about what is this framework and how it's being used in the industry. And this is actually that started with software development industry, but later on it's implemented everywhere, in pharmaceutical industry, in construction, in even Air Force and government agencies. So right now it's implemented everywhere. So we'll see what is this framework and how this can be implemented. And we'll also try to do some sort of practice, or you can say activity, that you can check that even you can implement this at your home for your normal activities. This is a little bit introduction for myself. I'm actually a professional trainer from Scrum Alliance, and there's another organization, Scaled Agile US. And furthermore, I'm also giving trainings and working as a director in AI-based company in Pakistan. Okay, so quickly, let's talk about that. What's this framework and how we can use it. So first of all, time has changed. If you see that there's a lot of things has been changed from a decade now. The way of working processes are improved to deal with the new challenges. Having insight of new frameworks is essential to cope with the new challenges. Scrum, just to give you all an overview, Scrum is actually from the traditional project management frameworks. We used to work in a very traditional way in different, you can say, phases. Any project management, if you heard PMI, Project Management Institute, that's a very renowned organization all over the world. And they also follow some waterfall side of, you can say, processes to do anything. Take an example, if in any architect who is working to construct any building, they will be following some project management ways, that they will be, so first of all, they will be planning something, then they will be designing the then we concern, and then they will also do some quality assurance, and the building is there. So these kind of project management practices are already being used from a long time, like many decades. Now, with the innovation of technology and software industry, these practices were having a very hard time to be implemented in software world. And there were some reasons behind that, because those frameworks like project management, and they require a lot of documentation, a lot of work, and there were some, like you can say, hurdles as well. With the time, there was rapid changes, rapid development, and according to that change, the processes has to be changed as well. So I'll talk about some technological revolutions in the history. That, for example, in 70s, the Industrial Revolution was there. Then we got Age of Steam and railways, Age of Steel and heavy engineering, and oil and mass production. Every technology had its turning point. If you see that the Industrial Revolution, that's 1793 to 801. Then there's 1848 to 50, and so on. Software and digital revolution, that is the longest revolution so far, and its turning point is still going on. It started from 2000 after the .com, and later on it's still going on. Like I'm attached with this industry from last 20 years. So still I'm seeing a lot of new innovations and it's still in progress. And that's so far the history, it's the history's most, you can say, biggest revolution. How this is changing the market. Like you can see that BMW's CEO is expecting actually they're more than half of the R&D staff as a software developers. So BMW is as a car company. So they are for their R&D department, they are not hiring for any electric engineers or any other engineers. They actually hiring for software developers. Why? Because they have to in sync with the latest technology. Similarly, Amazon is actually merged with Whole Foods. Just to have a good merger, you can say Amazon is also the biggest seller online. They don't have their own warehouses, but they are the biggest sellers and a multi-billion-dollar company. Similarly, Tesla, the electric cars, this is actually now their revenue is exceeds from Ford. And the most important part, Apple is the biggest watchmaker in the world. No one can even expect that. Like I never liked wearing watches, but now since I'm a technology guy, so I like to have Apple Watch. I'm actually using it. This is in sync with my cell phone, with my MacBook, everything. So that's how industry is changing with the technology. So let me talk about the history that what was the existing project management like. So relay race, most of the people you know about that. Relay race approach, there's one guy that runs and he has to pass the baton to the next one. So traditional project management approach was like that, where one phase, excuse me, one phase has to move on and the other phases are in queue. So that was actually later on when with the software and industry revolutions, these kind of practices were, you can say, taking more time. Instead of a holistic or a rugby. So if I see, give you an example of this relay race, approach to problem development with the goals of maximum speed and flexibility instead of holistic and rugby approach where a team tries. So there are two sports have been referred. One is relay race where one person runs and passes the baton to the next one. And then one is rugby where the whole team works together for the same goal. So this Scrum framework is actually for product development, any kind of product, not only the software product. That can be a manufacturing product, that can be anything, any product. So they referred the words Scrum for this approach. So this is a traditional project management process that's very typical, like where whatever you do for in any project, you go for plan, then you go for designing, and then you go for execution, then you do some sort of testing and quality assurance, and you go live. Now, so far from our childhood, we are seeing this kind of approach. And I'm sure there are many people who are still following the same approach. In software industry, back in 2001, these approaches were changed because this approach, this is kind of, you can say, this is kind of a waterfall approach. Then from one step to, you are going to another step and then so on. This is called waterfall approach. So with the time, the problem we can see, if we had a change in design, we had to go back to the planning. We have to update the plan. Similarly, if we have a change in execution or testing, or even like in live version, we always have to go back to the planning. And we always have to follow and you can say fulfill all the steps from top to bottom. That was the major, you can say, bottleneck in waterfall approach. And this is actually, I have seen many architects. I'm myself certified in project management from PMI. So I have negotiated with different architects who are working in this, and whenever they have any change, even during the construction material, even they've take an example, some other industry, even digital media, even in any industry, they do, if they have any change in execution or testing, they have to go back to the plan and they have to update the plan, because in the plan they have settled all the resources and dates. So any change that actually interferes, or you can say affects the whole plan, and the deadline can also be changed. That was the, you can say, a challenge at that time for the traditional project management. So how Scrum is basically coping with or addressing all these challenges. This is the same thing. The waterfall is actually a defined or planned process where everything is planned, or you can say predefined. This is the reason this implementation describes above is risky and invites failure. So let's move on to the framework, the solution, what we have. So Scrum is actually an empirical process. What is the empirical process? This is decisions are made based on observation and experimentation rather than on the detailed upfront planning. Empirical process control relies on the three main ideas of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So this is actually mostly based on observation and experimentation. And Scrum is specifically designed for, initially, that was specifically designed for complex product development. Again, I'm saying product can be anything, any type of thing. Then not only the software, not limited to the software industry, any type of complex development. And mostly it's used in government departments, in R&D as well, even in car industry as well. So an example, we can see that like in our home and in our offices, we can use any like regulator or any, you can say a controller, where this is actually a feedback sort of control, where we actually set a temperature and we check the outcome, and then we adjust the temperature. This is kind of feedback loop. You set the desired outcome, output desired outcome, you get over there, measure actual outcome, what you are actually facing, what you're actually feeling. According to that, you again adjust the temperature. So this is the same theory has been used in Scrum. Empirical processes, again, instead of waterfall approach where we always have to go back to the planning, to the execution, anywhere else, this is actually a holistic method, as in rugby. The ball gets passed within the team as it moves as a unit up the field. Scrum, let me tell you the meanings of the Scrum. Scrum is actually derived from the rugby game. In the start of the rugby, there's, let me see if there's any, this. So in rugby, basically, Scrum is the formation of the team when they gather together. So this word is actually came from the rugby sports. So how the whole team gather to achieve the same common vision or common goal. So this is basically Scrum. So going back to the same point, empirical process, when we follow such processes or frameworks, definitely there will be failure. Because like you are trying something, okay, you may fail, and you may have to move on, but you have to learn from your failure. You are experimenting, and you are executing, and you are monitoring your last goals, and you are learning from it. And from those learning points, you are again planning for the new work. So this is a continuous process where you are executing, you are learning, and you are planning again. And most of the people in our industry and in many industries, they actually, they are very much, you can say, there's a major fear of failure. So in Scrum and in all these kind of frameworks, that's a major, that failing is in friction right now. I have seen many good things about that. There was even in Pakistan, I have seen a job post where it's mentioned that we need a person, an entrepreneur who has failed a startup. So basically the point is why we need a person who was failed, just because to get the experience of his failure, instead of we implementing it first and then we will be facing that failure, or we will be getting those lessons. So moving on, considering all these frameworks, Scrum was introduced in 90s, and later in 2001, there was like Agile term introduced. And it was like very short, you can say a manifesto. around 12 to 13 people. There was a group of people who defined this manifesto. And there were many inventors, like two of them were Scrum inventors, one of them is Wikipedia inventor, and there were many, you can say, good leaders over there who defined this process. So what is Agile Manifesto? This is actually, the name was Manifesto for Agile Software Development, because at that time, the major concern was like how we can make processes for software development, because software development was also following the same processes that have been used in construction and all over the world. But software development field is a bit different. So they came up with four statements, very simple statements. Those were like individual interactions over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. So that's a whole manifesto. And it's been 19 years, it's still the same. And all these frameworks like Scrum, there are many other frameworks as well. Those are actually following these values. So what they are saying, that they are actually mentioning that we value more individual and interactions as compared to we will be using the processes and tools. They value more working software or working product in a generic term as compared to the comprehensive documentation. Similarly, customer collaboration is more important. We value more. Instead, we negotiate on the contracts. And the most important point, responding to change, it was very important, because whenever a change is there, we have to change everything. And that's why there was change management departments in the companies, and most of the people, they fear the change. So over here, we have small sprints to do the work. So responding to change is more important right now. Instead, we follow the plan. Okay, we cannot implement the change because their plan is like this. We will hold this change till a particular date. And by that time, like, industry is quite rapid, and many things can be changed. So this is the whole manifesto so far. That's Scrum, and that's the framework's overview. I'm not going in detail. This is a plan, execute, inspect, and adapt, and done. That's it. This is the main. Framework is pretty simple, but it's hard to implement because this needs cultural changes. It's transformation related to the culture part. The values, it also shows you the values. The values are very important. And I'm also a consultant, so I'm working with different firms where we can transform these kind of frameworks, but we are faced with many cultural problems. So that's the reason they have to find the value. The commitment, there should be any team who should be committed. They should be focused, they should be open and transparent. There should be a respect among all the team members, and there should be courage. They can courage to say anything, courage to adopt anything, courage to follow any plan. So these are the 5 values from Scrum. And the framework is, again, as mentioned, it's pretty simple. Like in our companies, we have many designations. Like there's some project manager, there is some guy who's the team lead, there is some designer, there is some development guy or architect guy. So in Scrum, they actually summed up everything in only three roles. There's product owner, there's Scrum master, and a team. That's it. There's no manager. There is no guy who is subordinate, and any coordinator, any designer, any architect. So only these 3 roles. So summaries, I'll explain about the roles. That's pretty simple. Summaries, there will be 5 summaries. We will do planning. We will do a sprint, daily Scrum review, and retrospective. Similarly, there are 3 artifacts, and we'll talk about that. So if I talk about the role, there are only 3 roles. The product owner, that's a guy who will be interacting with the clients, getting the requirements, and furthermore, prioritizing the requirements. Similarly, he will be responsible for the ROI as well. And if you talk about the Scrum Master can be a person who will be a servant leader. I specifically mentioned servant leader because servant leader are not the managers. Team don't report to Scrum Master. He or she will be there to help the team, to coach the team, to help them remove any kind of hurdles or impediments from their work. And the last thing is, the third role is the team. Team includes everyone, all relevant stakeholders who are required to do the job. That includes anyone, any industry, any person, any people. So there's no particular labels or designations. This is only a team. We need people who can work on a particular task. So for that purpose, they actually went for smaller teams in the start. So there's only 3 to 9 people in a team. If you have more people for a project, you can create many teams. So then they will actually interact with each other. That's a different thing. How they will be interacting with each other. The teams should be cross-functional and self-organizing. That's the most important part. How we can become cross-functional and self-organizing. And working with many companies, like I have seen this was a major challenge, how people can be self-organizing, because there's a command and control culture in the companies, and people mostly, in any case, they actually try to be engaged with their managers. So how they can be self-organizing, how they will be taking their own work, and cross-functional is actually a bit different thing. Let me tell you what could be the cross-functional, because this is also a new term in the industry. So cross-functional, there's a term T-shaped resources nowadays. This kind of example is from a software industry, but still this is actually, that can be used in any industry. So T-shaped resources who have breadth of knowledge and depth of expertise. Like they have many other skills from different domains, from different industries, but they have in-depth knowledge of one skill. These are the T-shaped resources. Like there was a phrase, jack of all, master of none. So we actually altered this phrase, jack of all, master of one. So this is kind of a T-shaped resource right now. And even people are using these kind of T-shaped resource examples in their resumes nowadays. And with the time, if you see the rapid change, we have to actually, we have to become such kind of resource where we can, I can give you an example. Like I'm from IT industry, and I'm learning coaching. That's a professional coaching. That would be a new skill for myself. But my in-depth skill is from software industry. I'm a trainer, I'm a consultant. So right now, these kind of skill sets are required in the industry. So these are the cross-functional resources who can work on more than different kind of activities. Self-organizing, I'll talk about that self-organizing, that how we can do that. I have given a talk, and there was a person who asked me a question, that how one can become self-organizing. Like there is a manager, there is a director sitting over there, and they have more experience. So they will be giving you tasks, they will be guiding you, do this and don't do that. So definitely they have more experience, so they should be following those orders. So if you see there in the nature and all over the world, the most common tasks through the self-organization. Instead, those can be guided, and I can prove that. There are some things those cannot be controlled. If those can only be functioned if those are self-organized. So let me give you an example. First of all, we talk about the nature. If you can see my screen and the voice as well, just check these start. I hope everyone can hear the voice and the video clearly? Can someone confirm me?
Yeah, Mohsin, we can hear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that is one example for the nature that like how the self-organization can work. This kind of formation, no one can control, and in very instant time. And similar thing, like in technology, the same thing can be done. And if you see similar kind of work that has been done, that's actually through the self-organization pattern. The most complex things can be done. So if you see
Method to
this,
transition between formations in 3D. The team can also navigate in environments with obstacles.
so that was the simple example of self-organization. And can you like believe that these kind of formations and work can be controlled? Like we know drones, we can control them. So all these drones, can you believe that all there were many people who will be controlling them, and they will be making these kind of shapes? That's not actually possible because everyone cannot be synced. So these drones were actually communicating with each other through AI, and those were designed to self-organize. And how they were working, they were actually getting the feedback. They were sending the message, they were getting the feedback. Accordingly, they were reacting. So this is basically a self-organization, and similar kind of concepts are actually implemented in Scrum, that how a bunch of people, a group of people or a team can self-organize to solve a complex problem. There's few ceremonies, you can say events in Scrum, starting from a planning, and then there will be sprint. Sprint is the exit part when you do some work. Planning, where you do the planning. And then there's a review when you actually give the demo to your customer. And there's a retrospective. Retrospective is actually lesson learned. Then you talk about what has been done good, what was bad, or how we can improve. And then we move on and we do the planning again. So these are the pretty simple things. We also do daily patch-ups with each other in a daily meetings. Team talk to each other on a daily basis. So in Scrum, you need to create small iterations to do any work. So those iterations are called sprints. A sprint, a quickly run, a short run. So a maximum iteration of sprint can be of 30 days or less than that, not more than 30 days. So this is the same thing. And there is a pull principle that the team, they will be working on this framework. They will be actually they will be pulling their work. No one will be assigning them. Similarly, there will be a sprint. The whole team will be working on the similar goal. And as daily scrum means the team, I'm not asking any manager, the team, they stand together or they get together and they talk about their daily progress to see the goal. And they will be review how they can demo their product. Retrospective is very much important, that continue doing, stop doing, start doing sort of things can also be faced over there. Okay, so there are some artifacts. There are basically 3 artifacts. The major one is product backlog. All your requirements, all your demands, all your suggestions, we have a backlog that is called product backlog. We put everything over there. That comes from the vision to product vision board. And then we have actually a stack of requirements. So this is a pretty simple. We are not actually, you can say, creating some sort of fantasy of requirements, or not so much heavy comprehensive documentation. This is some simple, a stack of documents. That's it. Similarly, if we move on, then there is a sprint backlog. We will actually pick the top prioritized items from the product backlog, and that we call sprint backlog. That's it. And in the last, we actually call it, it's not mentioned artifact over here. The last thing is the most important artifact is that the done, the product increment. At end of each sprint, we need to have something in return, something, a complete, you can say an increment from the product that you are working on. And we also talk about the definition of done. Mostly the time in companies, when we talk about things, different things, so we say that, okay, one person asks, okay, is this done? The employee says, okay, this is done. So we also need to define the definition of done. My definition of done can be different than your definition of done. According to my definition of done, these are the 3 tasks should be completed. According to your definition of done, there is a 5 tasks should be completed. So why not we properly define it? What's the definition of done? So we can all get in sync on this definition. So the whole team in the planning part, we define the definition of done. When someone says this task is done, they actually tallies their task from the definition of done, that everything from this checklist is completed, then we can mark it done. And half done is not done. Mostly we see these kind of words. This is almost 90% done. This is 99.9% done. So again, this is only done or not done. And finally, this is a workflow. If I talk about framework in common words, so this is the complete framework where you can see a complete backlog. You can see a stack of requirements. We pick the top prioritized items from the requirements, and then we work on this for 30 days or less. And we also discuss the status with the team daily basis. At the end, that work is delivered or showed to the customer. And if there is anything that's not done, that is actually moved back to the product backlog. And in technical terms, this is the framework. So I'm not going in detail because if anyone is going in any technical terms, so this is more, you can say, layman term that can be defined. So that's the so far whole framework. And any Scrum without working product in the end of a sprint is failed Scrum. So any sprint we talk about, if at the end of the execution, if you don't have any increment, that can be a small increment, that is okay. But if you don't have any increment, that is a failed sprint, failed Scrum. If I talk about the adaption in the industry, so you will be amazed because it's mostly implemented in many companies, including Microsoft, Yahoo, Google, Electronic Arts, not only technology companies, like you can say Philips, Siemens, Capital One, and there's like BMC software is also American real estate. It's also being used there. And then the Scrum has been used for interesting part other than software industry. Like this is a contract development parts, ISO 9001, it's being used over there. The interesting part is the Joint Strike Fighter, even for fighter planes, it's also being used over there. I myself got trained from Virginia, and over there my class was like most of the, like 60% class was from ex-military officers who were there to learn this. So in the US military, in their government departments, and in all their non-technical departments, it's being used over there. I myself is a trainer, and I'm actually founder of a community in Pakistan. That's actually a non-profit community who are working on this particular cause. So we have conducted many trainings similar in Pakistan, where the trainers from abroad, they came here and they worked with us, and we had a very interesting trainings over there. So these are the trainings, those are related to this framework, and there are many. Scrum is the only one framework, there are other frameworks as well. So we have done some educational campaigns in universities, colleges, and some other trainings. So that's the whole journey so far in Pakistan, and we are also targeting in outside Pakistan as well. There's a good saying that I really like, because most of the time when we go in companies and we talk about that okay, how we can implement this, and mostly we are faced with the challenges of cultural transformation, and mostly from the leadership. So how leadership can absorb it. So this is actually from Edward's teaming. This is a very nice saying that mostly we face these kind of challenges in our company. So it is not enough that management commit themselves to quality and productivity. They must know what it is they must do. Such responsibility cannot be delegated. Most of the time we have seen that responsibilities are delegated and meetings are delegated to someone else. So, and if you can't come, send no one. That's the most important part. If you are more concerned about some project and more concerned about some delivery, so you have to be part of, you have to engage yourself. Don't delegate it. So that's a major, you can say, a message from here. And I'm actually in time. This is 5:40. So I'm open to, I could do some activity as well if we get the time. And but meanwhile, if you guys have any questions, so I'm happy to answer that.
Can I ask some question?
Sure.
Yeah. Mohsin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Mohsin, first of all, it's a very good presentation, very nicely done. I wanted to understand, like when you said the traditional project management software, so traditional project management concept, which is still prevalent, in all parts of the world, which normally they follow. If this is a very good, methodology of doing project management, I don't see much awareness in the industry. Is there any reason for that?
Awareness of this framework?
Yes.
So basically, again, I mentioned that it actually started from software industry. So if you talk about the software industry point of view, then the major software, if you are linked with software industry, so definitely you must have heard about it. But unfortunately, like this is not part of software industry, because that started from software industry and then it's actually transitioned to the other industry.
Okay.
So that's the reason it's actually a bit different. That from many companies, take an example. If I talk about Microsoft, if I talk about Google, if I talk about like any other firm, even I give an example from fighter planes and from US side. So even like in India and Dubai, many companies are following it. That all depends which industry you are in and how updated you are with the latest practices. Because right now, agile frameworks, these are very, very common. That can be a possibility because in different countries, there are different level of awareness. And also there's another challenge that so far, its adoption is very limited, limited to some countries like US, UK, and some other developed countries. Even in Pakistan, I'm working in Pakistan. So even in Pakistan, we are facing challenges to implement that because this actually requires transformation, a cultural transformation. So people will be actually motivated to work together. People will be motivated to self-organize and cross-functional. So mostly command and control culture is going on. So that's the reason the consultants and some transformation agents, they are working on this. So when you search on this, when you try to research on this, you will see many examples. And even maybe, can you tell me which industry you are in?
No, I'm basically from the logistics industry. So I just wanted to know, is this particularly, even if many industries other than IT is adopting, like Philips or some other companies you said, even in those segments, it's only applicable to IT industry, or for the complete process, this is applicable?
This is applicable everywhere. For example, let me give you an example. I'm actually following this framework, even managing my events. I'm actually the founder of a community. So we are conducting many events. So I'm using this framework to do the event management. Recently, like a few weeks ago, we conducted a virtual conference where more than 200 people participated. So I got a whole team, like there were around 15 people. So we followed this framework to do the event management, complete event management.
But do you have any live case study or any example other than the IT industry as to how this agile framework can work?
Yes, I can show you one. I actually, I'm happy you asked. I can quickly show you one right now. There's an industry about, let me show you. So if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Manager,
This is an
and
example.
this is the lab.
How they are.
We work on 1 week experiments. Somebody will have an idea and we'll find a way to figure out how to prove if the idea is going to work. And this week, the Innovation Lab is going to be building an iPad app with customer feedback as we go through the week. We wanted to work in the store to make sure that we were getting customer feedback as we worked, so that we were never working on anything that wasn't valued by the customer and only doing things that are delivering value. So we'll be building a feature and testing it until we get to the point where we have something that's good enough that we can just leave the iPad app behind and have this new thing that customers can use.
This is the world's first flash build. It's a flash mob where a software team shows up and builds an application in a surprise location. This is the Nordstrom Innovation Lab, and we're at the flagship store in downtown Seattle. Right now the team is just setting up their equipment to get started. We're going to build an iPad app that helps customers pick the best pair of sunglasses for them. We really don't know what the features are yet. We're going to use customer feedback as we go along throughout the day and the rest of the week in order to build the best thing.
So the next thing we're going to do is a user story map. So we're going to sit here and together outline all the steps the customer would take, and actually even beforehand how they buy sunglasses, like what are the different things that they might do and how that process might change.
Customers. I'll continue building individual paper slides, and our user experience specialist will bring the prototype to a customer and say, okay, I have.
So basically, the purpose of sharing this is, again, that was actually, this was also about software, but the most important part, what they were doing, they didn't know about what they need to develop. So they actually changed the whole process. Because in the traditional process, we get the requirements, we do the planning, we do the designing. So what they did over here, they actually just called their engineering team in their shop, and they directly interacted with the clients, and they got the requirements. Actually, they get the feedback, and they actually was checking and observing their experience, how they are feeling, how they are reacting, how they are giving the feedback. On the basis of they were actually making the requirements and the product backlog. And then they executed it accordingly. So that was a totally different way of doing things. So that is one example. Actually, that's most related to the design working and design thinking part, that where like you don't need to gather whole thing. You just go in the market, because since in the software industry, there is a very rapid change. Like we know that we are in a market and we think of something, and some other guy actually came up with the idea, okay, this is already there in the market. So that's something, the same thing. Further case study, I can tell you in government agency. I was in Virginia last year. So like in US government, for their whole taxation department, they are actually using these kind of frameworks right now. If you see that, I can send you the links as well. They are following these frameworks. They specifically for this purpose, they introduce a certification course for government. Like the Scaled Agile for government. So there are many examples and many case studies we can share later on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So any other question? I hope I didn't bore you.
Absolutely not, Mohsin. There was some good learning there. I think there are more people who want to talk, and then I also have a few questions, but I think I'll go later.
Sure.
Mohsin, thank you very much for the presentation. I just have one question. You mentioned about the culture, that the culture must change. So from your experience, how long does that take? From my previous company, we tried to use this agile approach. It was in the IT department. Somehow a little bit, costly because we outsourced and all of that, but the culture was not, for example, we still had the managers and the project manager, etc. So how long would that take to change the mindset?
Actually, Maha, that all depends on the company. It varies from the company. Like in Agile, we normally say the best practices are dangerous. Reason being, every company is different, every human is different. You are implementing something in one company, and you will be trying to implement the same thing in another company. So it's not necessary that will work. So every company, every culture, every part is different. So how much time it may take, that all depends. Like most of the people, actually that all depends how you are addressing that challenge. Most of the people, what they do, they actually send some people for some trainings to some organizations, and like take example 3 or 4 people, and when they come back, they ask them, okay, implement this framework in our company. Now these people just got certified, just got training. They don't have the experience of transformation. They don't have the experience to cope with the leadership challenges and the cultural challenges. So they try to, or you can say they try to secure their job, and they try their best to do that, but in the end they fail. So when they fail, then they actually realize, okay, this is not going to work. We need to do something else. So the right way is doing it to call the expert or hire an expert who will stick with your company, who has the leadership and management back, and who will work the whole company in, you can say, in different projects. You can try with a smaller project, and you can show the results for the other staff that this is the result. So the cultural change is the hardest part, but it may take time, but you cannot define the time in such situation because every company is different.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maha.
So Mohsin, what I heard in the conversation, the Scrum Master's role is very close to the coach's role, right?
Yes, it's close to the coach's role, but there is another role that's not part of Scrum, but it's actually in Agile. That's Agile coach sort of persons.
Okay.
So coaches are required, even Scrum Master, and they should also be good coaches, because Scrum Master are the people who will be engaged with the team, who will be helping them. Not helping them clearly, they will be actually enabling them to help themselves. So that's the reason they have to understand the coaching. So instead, they will be clearing out all the way and everything for them. They should enable the team, they should guide or coach the team so they can figure out their own problems. So Scrum Master is the one who should also learn the coaching, and then there's like the other roles as well. Those are not part of this framework. Those are actually part of a separate process that includes the team coach and the enterprise coach. A team coach that can address the team, and there's an enterprise coach that can address the whole enterprise. So coaching is there. That's the reason actually I'm in a CTA coaching course, and I'm also learning coaching because I'm also part of this transformation campaign, and coaching is really helping us. That's true.
Yeah, in coaching, how we look at it is the enterprise coach is more of a systemic coach or a systems coach, and a team coach focuses on the system. So is it very similar to the, do you have an idea of what systems coaching is?
Not system coaching. Basically, I'm actually mentioning the enterprise team level. Okay.
Okay.
Because team level is a bit, you can say small level. Enterprise is the bigger form. That's a bigger, and enterprise means that's a whole company, like then there can be 500,000 people.
Right. And that's sorry?
There will be many coaches. That's not only one.
Right. Yeah, so that's what I meant. You know, a systems coach is more an entrepreneur level coach.
Yes.
And a team coach is focused on team performance.
Yes. And again, just an example, because I normally do this activity, we don't have much time. And that's the reason I can just give you an example that you can use Scrum for your daily work. Like we normally do that, like you can use it for your child's birthday planning. Do that. Just
why don't you rather take us through a process? Let's take an example of child's birthday, and let's understand how does it work, and then we can probably make our translate. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can give you an example, but normally I do this activity, but you can do yourself later on because due to the short time.
Yeah.
So in a birthday example, like this is a very simple thing, just randomly figure it out that how many tasks you have in your mind for your child's birthday. You just name it instead of going in detail. Just name it, like you can create 10 tasks. I need to plan like the cake. I need to invite the friends. I need to invite the relatives. I need to bake something, like we need some decoration. So there will be a lot of tasks. These will be called your product backlog. And then you prioritize your tasks. Okay, which one is more prioritized? The cake, to buy a cake is more prioritized, or invite the people, or to bake something. Now prioritize your backlog. When you prioritize it, then on top of the prioritization, like from the backlog, you can take at least 3, depending on you, 3 to 5 tasks that are the most highest priority tasks, and separate it. This will be called your sprint backlog. That's it. And start working on those tasks, the most highest priority tasks. And your family, even your child, they are your team. Everyone who is responsible to organize that event, it will be your team. On a daily basis, you will be having a 15-minute sync up meeting where you'll be talking about that, what we are doing about. Everyone is giving their their statements that how they are going to achieve this goal. And you will define it, okay, for this many time, we will do this. Take an example for a week. And after a week, once the birthday is done, after the birthday, do the retrospective meeting where you call everyone and you talk about that, okay, what we did good and what we did wrong and how we can improve. And take those learning lessons for your next child's birthday. And I have done that, by the way, many times.
And that's a framework called, what do you call that framework?
Scrum.
Huh? Scrum framework. Okay. So what I understood, you put together all the tasks, then you prioritize, and then you pick up 3 to 5. You work on prioritizing. And what is a sprint here?
Sprint, the execution part.
Execution, where you meet every day.
Regularly. Every day, where you start preparing the things, where you will be doing things.
Okay.
The sprint is the execution part. Once you are done, then you move on to the review. There is no review, actually, there's happening. The event is happening. So when you are done with the event, then you go for the last part, that's retrospective. In retrospective, you gather, or everyone gathers around and they talk about, and they discuss their experience. There can be many failures. So we learn from our failures. So we note it down. So the same example I mentioned already, I have used the same example in my last conference. There were more than 200 people virtually in that conference. And we used the same example, and everyone gathered around and we followed the same Scrum framework to do that. And that was a brilliant, that was our first experience, and that went very well. There were some mistakes, and I noted it down, and we will learn from it.
If you were to tell coaches, how can they integrate the learning from today, what would that message be from you?
First of all, I would say, again, I already mentioned this, that with the time, things are changed. We are in a continuous learning process. So I would recommend, for example, I'm from IT industry, I'm learning here the coaching, and similarly, you will be from different industries. So I would suggest you that this is some additional term from project management point of view. Learn about it and try to implement it in your personal life, in your daily life, not in your job life or in your official life. Try to experience it. Try to learn something new. So in the end, it will definitely be helping you.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is more about becoming more effective at your work, and maybe personal life, professional life. Maybe that can enhance the efficiency of a person.
Definitely, that will improve because most of the time we are following the same processes from a long time, and we put ourselves in a comfort zone. So we have to come out from another thing is actually adaptability. We normally resist the change. In such frameworks, we actually welcome the change. So when you welcome the change, you will be challenging your comfort zone as well. You will be trying to come out from that. You will be changing your habits. So this is something there are a few people from my team over here in this call. I actually mentioned that, or there's actually a whole community for who are working, and for whichever country you belong to, you can check these kind of practices over there. It's available in every country right now.
So Mohsin, we are at the top of the hour, and let me ask people if they have questions, and they can ask you. Anyone with question for Mohsin?
I actually just have a comment, and Mohsin, thank you so much for sharing. This was extremely useful, and you know, some of the points that I was familiar with before. I think you went into great detail and did a great job at explaining them. I was thinking that the start, stop, continue frame is a pretty powerful one, and that's something that I've personally used as well at my with my team before. And it's just something which is so visual, and that daily 5 to 10 minute pull-up meeting in the morning, it just makes that a lot more effective, because you're just focusing on those three things, or the three areas, things that you should start, stop, and continue. And I think, you know, as Coach Harris was asking, how can we translate that into our own coaching practices? I think that would be a good exercise for us to do, as we are also doing the self-evaluation of our own work. It could also be a really powerful exercise to do with our clients, as we, you know, go back to them and ask them for feedback, not at the end, but during the coaching relationship, and asking them, you know, how things are going in terms of, you know, what you need to do differently, we need to do differently, what we can continue and also stop doing. So it might be, and that's also food for thought, but I thought that's something that is really powerful and useful.
Right. Yeah. Shraddha.
Thank you, Shraddha. I think that's a good idea. And that all depends, like what we can take out from such experience. This is all depends, like I'm using it in many other aspects. And you will be visioning it in a different way, and that can be helpful in a different way as well.
Right. I mean, it's basically an approach which you can apply wherever appropriate for development of client or client's organization or the team where you see a scope.
Right? Yeah, anything that's anything. Even I have seen an example, there's a lady who is actually using Scrum to wash the clothes at home. So she's actually taking a whole stack of clothes, and the most top prioritized clothes, those will be put down in the washing machine first. So this is one example that you can use anything, anytime. I have something like a board top of things where I'm actually, I have created lines for what in my to-do list, what's going on right now, and what I have already done. So these kind of things are already part of it.
Thank you, Mohsin. We will be posting this on Facebook and YouTube channels that we have in the group on Facebook. Please, Mohsin, if you can add relevant material and links for people to go and browse, that should be helpful to our coaches. Yeah.
Sure, definitely.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming in today, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday's call. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.